Welcome to the Creative Buzz, your podcast from the Center for the Arts in the beautiful Lake Sunapee region. Your host, CFA Executive Director Dina Stahlheber, brings together voices from across the literary, visual, and performing arts. Get ready for inspiring conversations with talented creators who fuel CFA's bright arts community. Whether you're an art lover or enjoyer, you can grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and get ready to catch the buzz. Here's our brief summary for the CFA podcast. First, we'll have our artist spotlight with Melody Wiggin. Then we'll have our gratitude moment, thanking a sponsor for all that they do in the Lake Sunapee region for our artists. Then we'll have our interview with W.D. Shipley. Afterwards, we'll have our closing remarks and letting other people know how to find out more and connect. Thank you so much for listening to the CFA podcast. Be sure to tune in, grab your snacks, and enjoy.
All right. I am thrilled to be here today with my artist spotlight guest, Melody Wiggin. I am thrilled. She is one of the Center for the Arts members who shares their beautiful talents and works with us at the Center for the Arts here in the Lake Sunapee region. She has a very, very special exhibit up this particular season at our MicroGallery over at Blue Loon Bakery. And I'm thrilled to be able to talk and ask a few questions about this amazing and special exhibit. So first and foremost, I just want to welcome you, Melody. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you. I'm really thrilled to be here. Yeah.
Oh, we love it. And we have so many amazing artists in the area and you being one of them. It is so great. This exhibit is so special, because, why don't you share a little bit about why it's so special?
Well, it's extremely special for me because my mother was a great artist. She was a multi-award winning watercolorist in the Arlington, Virginia area. She had exhibits in solo exhibits at Johns Hopkins University Art Museum. She won multiple awards with Rumbacher Award. She was part of the Vienna Art Society, part of the Virginia Watercolor Art Society. So her life pretty much, from the point that I can really remember, was all about art. And she even met my father due to art because he was her art professor in college.
Oh my gosh.
So art, it was pretty much what our family revolved around in various ways, art and anything creative, honestly. So, yeah.
I love that.
So, but my mother is deceased. She passed away in 2010. So I never even dreamt or thought about the idea that I might be able to do a show with her. But I approached, Rick Stockwell, who was running the MicroGallery's exhibits, about possibly doing a show with my mother's art and myself, a mother-daughter show. And he was all for it. Apparently, it's fine that she's deceased. I have many of her works, probably 300 paintings at least, from my mother. And so I started painting kind of late in life, and unfortunately, it was long after she and my father were deceased. So they never were able to see me, create in this way. I've done a lot of creative things in my life, but as far as art, I started 6 years ago. So they were never able to see what I could produce. And I remember when I first started feeling like they were painting through me, even though there were very different types of artists than I am. It was still this connection to them. And so to have my mother's work and my work displayed in the same area is very, very special to me. It means everything. So yeah, this is a very sentimental exhibit.
And we are thrilled to offer this. One of the things that I've always said, and this is our actually our second exhibit that we've done where there's a posthumous exhibit. And to me, that's the thrill and the joy of the arts is that they can truly be continued through time, really. There's no
Right,
end to, being able to
right.
share the timelessness of art. And that is so thrilling and exciting to me that we can do that. And especially in this scenario where it is you and your mother who get to have their works
Right,
up at the same time.
right, right.
Melody, I love your work. I think it's beautiful. Anyone who's in the Lake Sunapee region can come to the wonderful Blue Loon Bakery, who is a great partner in this, showcasing the beautiful work of both Melody and her mother Shirley. And you'll see the difference. There's a similarity, which I think is so special. Like as you speak about, kind of channeling your parents' creativity, you can see it. There's something that ties it. I'm not sure what that is. At the same time, your mother's work is so unique and she has such a wonderful style. I love your landscapes. I think you do such a great job with your color, your highlights. Everything is just really astounding. But I was really surprised to see such a different take. I mean, clearly your mom, had reason for receiving all these amazing rewards. Her understanding of color, her texture, her simple thought, because I think we were chatting the watercolor, and that is a very unforgiving medium that's very tricky. And so I'm always impressed by those who can master it. And I feel like your mother's one of those masters.
Yeah, and the other thing that was really special about her is that she really didn't use references. So she created images, and her work is, yes, she has some landscapes too, but she also does a lot of abstract type of art, and she combines realism with abstract, sometimes in the same painting. She sometimes adds wax. She does some mixed media, did some mixed media. So she has one of the pieces that is up has tissue. It's all kinds of tissue that creates a texture within the watercolor paintings. So watercolors normally are very flat, but some of hers have some beautiful texture. So she was a total so expressive. And the other thing about her work too is extraordinarily colorful. She has almost no work that isn't bold, bright, beautiful colors. Almost everything is bold, bright, and beautiful. And I believe, because she had interesting, she had some darkness in her soul. So I believe that the bright colors was her way of even brightening herself and her spirits. And they're pretty wild, I mean, you can just almost imagine her just letting it all out on her watercolor paper. So yeah, she was pretty extraordinary. And I grew up listening to, so my father also, was an artist in many different ways than my mother, but I remember always being conscious of aesthetics growing up and conscious of depth perception. And they were teaching us those things, even though I wasn't painting, they were still teaching it to me. And so when I started painting, it really all came out, all these things that I didn't even realize I had retained, from just hearing them and being around it and, noticing the creativity and paying attention. It's all there. And so It was really an interesting experience, especially when I first started, because, you know, it was like they were almost guiding my hands. I, I, I need to write a poem about that. But anyway,
Now, what
yeah,
inspired you to start your journey painting?
honestly, it was just something to do on a Saturday. I decided to go to the Courier Art Museum in Manchester and take a 3 hour acrylics course, and and just fell in love with it, like immediately fell in love with it. And I thought, this is so cool. I mean, I can't believe I've never done this. And I still have the little piece that I made that day, and I still love it, you know. Um, so, but I had an awful lot to learn at that point, about composition and so forth. But um, it was just a eye-opening and experience. And it's been quite a journey. I've been really, really enjoying it.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
much fun.
Yeah.
I think that's so great and encouraging too. As you know, the Center for the Arts just opened their first center, and we now have our first classroom. And the classes that we offer are something I'm super excited about. And I truly hope that
Yep.
the community can have those experiences too, where they say,
Yeah.
"Wait a
Yeah.
second, I love this. This is
They
so
will.
great."
Yeah.
For so many different reasons, right?
Hmm.
People do it because it's a release. Some people do it, it's healing. Some people doing it, it's just fun or it's different. And to me, there's so many boundless ways that you can approach painting in
Right.
particular these days that before, there used to be certain styles I feel like you were taught in school and whatnot. And now it's kind of like, well, yes, but throw that out the door and use your fingers and a paperclip. I mean, like
Yeah.
you can, there's so many different approaches now that you can experiment with that I think is really fun.
And the other thing that I think that I know that this happened to me, and I've talked to a lot of other artists, that's happened to them too, is that once you start painting or creating, you know, you start seeing the world differently. There are things that you notice that you never noticed before. Like for instance, if you look up at the trees and around the branches, if you look in the sky, there's like a cobalt blue that outlines all the branches. But normally you wouldn't even notice that, and it's very subtle, and some people still have a hard time when I say that. They say, really? But but it's true. And then when you are just taking a walk, you all of a sudden, there's a composition that's right in front of you, and you have to stop, and you can see you see it, and you see the colors and how this one interacts with this one, and so forth. But those things, now it takes me a really long time to take a hike because constantly stopping to look at this and look at that. But isn't it wonderful to be able to see all these things in our world that are so special that maybe we didn't see before, you know?
It's so true. There was a woman who recently exhibited at Grounds Coffee Shop in London for our last microgallery showcase, and she had an amazing understanding of shadow and perspective on it, and used a variety of different colors because really it isn't like just black and gray for
Right,
shadows, depending on your lighting and how that looks. And it
right,
was such a great eye-opening perspective of, what our eyes really do or don't see, and then what
right,
our brain may or may not pick up as well. But it's actually there. And so it,
right.
it enhances that and helps you see differently. I really, really love that about art. Um, Now, did I recall this right? Were you saying that your mom mixed all her paints, or made all her paints, or was she just doing
Well,
all her colors?
yeah, I mean, she certainly mixed colors together and so forth, but um, a lot of a lot of what she did, because watercolors, of course, you know, the name, it's in the name. There's water, right? And it's how much water, which creates sort of a translucent look. or it can be a little bit more opaque depending on how little water you use too. But so she essentially would mix them right on the paper in a way, because she might layer this color with this color. So she didn't always mix them together. You know what? To be honest with you, I don't ever remember her having a palette. I remember her having um, the tubes, but I don't remember a palette where she actually mixed the paint. Now, I just may have missed it because it was a long time ago, but at the same time, I feel like she just would grab a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and then go on the paper. And then she'd have happy accidents, they mix together and they might flow a certain way. And then, okay, so there's a stream and, and then maybe this is going to create a rock and, and that kind of thing, so she would do a lot of allowing the painting to talk to her and tell her where she was going, whereas I'm do a lot more planning and, have a really good idea usually when I start a painting of where I want to end up with it. But she didn't. She just really let the imagination flow. And therefore, she also has a lot of paintings that she just never finished. She just, so I have a lot of unfinished paintings that someday I intend to, work on, possibly work on some of them and make, have a combined painting, her and me. But, and then she would turn the paper over, because with watercolor paper is very opaque and kind of thick. And so she'd turn it over and she might paint something else on the other side. And we all call them twofers. two paintings for one. If you get tired of one, you just turn it over and you can display the other. And they can sometimes be both absolutely beautiful paintings. So, I mean, yeah, she was kind of extraordinary that way, but she was constantly experimenting, trying out new things, trying different ideas, different techniques. And there were sort of periods to her art too, and you could see, well, here's the pen and ink period, and here's the, later on when she would be adding textures, there's that period, and then the wax period, and then there was an abstract period where she did mostly abstracts, and then there's another period where she did mostly people, so she really went through, various phases. And so I kind of can pick out when things would have been painted according to, the subject matter, because I kind of remember her periods. So it's interesting.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
And I really find it so fascinating because it's, as you talk, I just am, I'm looking at one of her pictures that I know we have on the website currently. If you go to centerforthearts.org /microgalleries, you can see a photo of one of the paintings by Shirley Wiggins, and the colors are just so, not amorphous, but like you were saying, they kind of blend into each other, and you can see how she was probably playing with some of that. And it really is lovely because she understood color so well, I feel like.
Oh,
Just kind of put things in the right place and accented it. And
yeah.
just to think about doing that with watercolor, I know my accidents aren't happy with watercolor. These are lovely. Now, will you ever try, or have you tried watercolor, or do you feel like you have to kind of stay away from that?
I tried gouache. I haven't technically tried watercolor, but gouache can work similarly to watercolor, because if you water it down enough, it's translucent like watercolor is. But gouache I feel a little safer with, because gouache can be opaque. So if I don't like something that I've done, I can I can wait for it to dry and then just paint over it, and with another opaque color, and it works. But once I found oils, I kind of never looked back. I just love oils. They're vibrant, extremely vibrant. They kind of have that glossy character. So they're rich, a lot of texture. I love that. You can go on, you can be thin, you can be thick, you can be thin and thick in the same painting. And so kind of bring out the subject matter or whatever a little bit more clearly with the thicker paint, and leave other parts thin. And so I just happen to love oils. I also love the blending quality of it. Um, but and even the smell of it a little bit. I like the smell of oil paints. But anyway, yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, she had a very very original.
So much fun. Well, I so appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today, Melody. And I encourage everyone who's listening to go to Blue Loon. If it's still there, check out the exhibit. It's there until the end of July 2025. And if not, just go seek it out. There's a few different ways you can get in touch with Melody. Melody, what are the best ways for people to get in touch with you? Do you have a website? Do you have a
Yeah. So my website is melodywigginartist.com. And my email is simply melody@melodywigginartist.com. So yeah, I would love to hear from anybody that has any questions. And yeah, certainly.
Excellent. So, folks, check out Blue Loon Bakery in downtown New London, New Hampshire, for the special exhibit of both Melody and Shirley Wiggin. It's really phenomenal. And especially this spring when we're all desperate for color and summer and warmness, these bright, vibrant colors and the beautiful landscapes are wonderful to see. So thank you, Melody, for being with us. And if you are here in New London at some point, feel free to stop by our other micro galleries where we have some amazing artists at Bar Harbor Bank, New London Inn, Grounds, our center over on Main Street, and the Tatewell Gallery. Thank you again for being with us, Melody.
We want to take a moment to pause and thank our community partners. Firstly, Bar Harbor Bank and Trust, Davy Proven Solutions for a Growing World, North Cape Design Build, O'Halloran Group, and our additional partners as well. Thank you so much for partnering and being a part of Center for the Arts.
All right, so I am thrilled to be here today to talk with William Bill Shipley, who is the author of Manufacturing Artificial Intelligence Agency, a dystopian thriller that explores memory, control, and rebellion in a future governed by artificial intelligence. Super fun for those of you sci-fi people. Very exciting. I love it that you're able to join us today, Bill. I think it's a fantastic story. And one of the main reasons I wanted to have you on here is you had such a really interesting approach to well, in general, the story's super fun, but also in the way you've written it by using support from artificial intelligence to write it, which I know is a very big topic right now, somewhat controversial, although I think most people have embraced it really openly. But, as we talked before on a program with 603 writers, there's so much more to it. There's the moral and ethical pieces. But today, I really love the piece, one, I'd love to, learn more about your story because it's super fun and your book, but also your process of writing it and maybe, talking more about how people can be involved with artificial intelligence because I think many of the, I guess, masses maybe have been more so like ChatGPT and just asking questions almost like a enhanced search engine versus, there's a lot more power to these tools. So in any case, please welcome and share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, awesome. Well, again, thank you for this opportunity. So excited to be here. Anytime I'm able to talk about this topic, I get really energized. I think it's very timely. Of course, the book launch and when it came out is fantastic, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But I've been writing since high school. So I don't even want to do the math, but it's definitely over a couple decades for you who don't know how old I am. So it's been a passion of mine. I have four completed manuscripts. I really only have taken this one to the point of publication and where it is through, of course, the guidance of Portal Star Publishing and Marjorie Chappelle and her excellence. So excited about the book. What's really, really interesting about it is that it came out, it's mostly about AI control, of course, but it was launched originally in 2016 as a completed project. And after meeting Marjorie, we actually decided to work together, pull down the project. She worked as a story guide for me. And then through that, I didn't necessarily use AI in the creation of this book per se, because it actually came out, even this version of it, May last year, really before AI was as robust as it is today. But I've been able to use the tools creatively, and I have to learn them in my regular day-to-day job in marketing. So I'm very, very versed in them, and I've taken a lot of time to do a lot of research as this was coming up. I knew it would be big, so I read a lot of books on it and prepped myself. And most recently, I actually did use AI in its entirety to create my own audiobook version of Maya, of manufacturing artificial intelligence, which is really fun.
Wow, so that's pretty amazing. Um, I know there's a lot of back and forth with people on the originality of content, if it's using artificial intelligence. And I believe, as we were saying before, Amazon Kindle is requiring people to say how much is of the content written is AI supported or AI generated. And so that's a whole new distinction for the literary world. It sounds to me like yours is pretty much mostly your brainchild, which is awesome, with some additional uses of artificial intelligence, which, as I think about writing a book and having written a book myself, it's only so much of your process is actually writing the book when
Right.
it comes to getting that book
Yeah.
out there. That's like the easy part. And then there's the editing piece, and then there's the publishing and getting it out there. Then there's the marketing, then there's the sale. So it sounds to me like throughout this whole process, there's a whole new tool set for writers and authors to really leverage. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree 100%. So when I first heard about this, and especially I think there was some like almost like TED Talk type setup when ChatGPT became as abundant as it is and it was released. And I remember my first thought is, oh my gosh, why am I even bothering writing anymore? Like this is gonna take over in 10 years, creative writers won't even exist. And I had this like doomsday, and it's like ironic because I write dystopian. So like this is like I might as well just quit now. But the more I learned about it, and because I had to do that professionally outside of my creative world, is I realized that it's really actually a tool that is meant to turbo power your own brain. And what I mean by that is you're now, to your point, you're able to look things up very easily. You're able to use AI to understand easier concepts or make concepts that may be difficult easier for you to understand as the writer because you have to get into these shoes of these characters. So I initially started using it for that in a sense, where I need to understand the persona, maybe the job that they have. So I would say things like in 250 words summarize what it would be like for the day-to-day life of a surgeon. And AI will give you that information and it will give you things that you may not have thought about and it will do that research for you. And that 250 words would take me days of research previously. So that's like the first thing that I started using it for.
And that to me is so fascinating. And really, I feel like in so many ways, artificial intelligence is just that next step of information management because we're in that information age. And
Hmm.
so now that we have access to so much information, how do we sort through it? Because you can get down to the nittiest grittiest of anything, I feel like, in so many ways. And so AI is a really great tool to help, hone that. And I love what you're saying about character development because I think it's almost like having someone next to you in some cases to just brainstorm with quickly. Like,
Hmm.
if my character were, 57-year-old, blah, 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 female woman who was a smoker, chain smoker, who had cancer and just like you can give all of those different prompts and ask a question. Well, what might their, life expectancy be? What might a doctor tell that person? Like, or you can get all this kind of different perspective based on, a really clever and well-written prompt that will help you hone and shift maybe your where your story goes, or help you also make your character more true to the shape of what you've been trying to put together for the story.
Oh, for sure. And I've used it in that way for sure. And I remember writing my most recent manuscript that has still has some editing and everything to go through. I remember for character development, I was Googling pictures of like celebrities and just people that fit my character description just to get that image in my brain. It's really interesting to me when you ask like, what does the character look like? And everyone has their own that's one of the beauties of a book. They have their own like version of that. But I think one of the things with AI that one of the powers that it's provided is that you don't necessarily have to just go Google like celebrities from movies or things of that just to have that like image of what that character looks like is you can actually ask it to develop you the photo. And given that once you have that kind of physical description in your mind and now it's succinct, now you can revert back to that and kind of keep it as your writing assistant, if you will, throughout the whole process to kind of keep everything succinct and organized, and you don't have to double check yourself later on down the road.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Now, how much did you didn't use it for the premise, so I'm curious, where did the premise of the story come, knowing that you completed it before AI has kind of blown up over the past few years?
Yeah, so my writing process is I don't necessarily think it's completely unique. I sometimes when I talk to creative writers, they're surprised that I do so much of the writing away from the keyboard because it kind of just mentally happens for me. The premise for it started in college. I started writing M.A.I.A, so back in probably 2008 is when I started writing this manuscript. In any time out of the four projects that I've completed, every single time it kind of starts with a really big question and it will obviously influence me to go down this path and uncover this journey. And the question that got me to go 320 pages, originally longer and now cut down, of course, through this journey was if I was in a military community and I was a programmer and I was programming chips for these soldiers, but then realized that the current chip that I was programming was going to be my own son's, what information or what access would I allow the overseeing government to have access and see? So not that I'm giving anything away. And the prologue there is a programmer, and he realizes that he is now programming his own son, which is very different from all of those other people that he programmed. So he leaves some of those connection sources out, which can have implications in a scenario where military personnel's memories are supposed to be controlled. So that branched the entire story. And that it was just that one moment of a question in college.
Wow, that's awesome. And I think that's what's so great about story is that it can help us think through, these hypothetical situations that bring out so much of our humanity and
Mhm.
question so much about our rationale and what is our moral compass and what is right in these tough situations. And um in real life we come across those types of things, maybe not that a specific example, but there are situations where we're wondering, is that the right decision for our kids? Would I do that the same way?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So
What I
fascinating.
found interesting is that I had written all of this previous to having children. So it was like really interesting to become a parent. I now have two beautiful daughters. So I still wouldn't know what it's like to program a son's chip, but I can tell you confidently what my reactions would be if it were my daughters, and it certainly would have been that of my character in that direction and making sure that full access wasn't given for them. So my perception of having children didn't change after, the whole process was completed and then I had kids.
That's just so interesting. How funny. Um, I love that though, and I love that you've taken a lot of time to really think through your story, and even having gotten to the place of completion or feeling like it was completed, taking that moment to say, wait a second, it can be even better.
Hmm.
And then working with the New Hampshire Writers Project with Mashery, that's so cool. Now I wonder, one that makes me think, one to encourage other writers that it doesn't take a day to write a book. Like it takes time
Oh my gosh, yeah.
to really think it through, and then, to be simmering on those characters. And as you continue to write it, you might find it shift, or you might find that, hey, this tone actually works better for the story. So now I want to shift the whole tone of it. So, I mean, there's a
Hmm.
lot of things that happen in the story writing process that are organic, I feel like, that are really
Hmm.
exciting and very, very cool. But, not to discourage folks who are, writing right now and they're like, wow, I should be done with this. It's taken me 5 years, or, that's okay.
Yeah, it is. And you're right that some people need to hear that for sure. I think the silver lining is I do think with AI, it can potentially speed up the process and it can help with that. So if I could go back, and I think I'll likely do this on any future projects, is I would have AI be kind of like my little creative writing assistant, if you will, and it would be somebody that I would be bouncing ideas off or character names. You can very easily say, I need, 16th century male names that are from this area, spit off 10, and then you see them and get inspired by that. And that's okay because right now people find inspiration in walks, listening to music, watching other movies, reading other books, even. You can't tell me if you read 10 books from one author that as you as an author go to write, that you're not going to absorb some of that style and everything else. So to leverage AI in that way is okay, in my opinion. What I would do differently, I think, today is if I needed help with writing any of it, there's a way of doing it so it's still authentically you. And what I've found, and this works particularly with emails or blogs or anything you're doing, is if you take a segment of your own writing, uh, 10 pages as an example, first couple chapters even, and you were to prompt it to say, please analyze, you hop into ChatGPT and you say, please analyze these 10 pages, and I want you to analyze the tone, the structure, the verbiage, the age in which I'm writing at for the appropriate age per se, and understand the style. It's going to take your own work, W.D. Shipley's work, and analyze that and basically remember how to write like that going forward. So that if you were now going to say, I'm struggling with this paragraph or I'm struggling with this page, I need help with this. Now you have something, a piece of technology that has basically copied your mentality and is going to spit it back in your own tone, in your own style, with your own type of composition. It's kind of almost like you're writing it. It's a little off, but like when I thought of that, I was like, that is going to work and it's genius.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Because I think that's one of the big pieces that, I look at when I do anything with ChatGPT or any of the other services out there, is that tone piece, like you said, is really,
Mhm.
really important because that's part of our unique approach to content or story or whatnot. And it's kind of like your fingerprint. So I wouldn't want to lose that. So I'm glad to hear that. And yet at the same time, it's kind of crazy to think about.
Creepy, crazy, whatever you want to call
No,
it.
I'm like, is that okay? I guess it is. It just would do it faster than I would. And I think as long as, the creator is reviewing and is giving their stamp, I think that seems okay to me in the sense, because I would think about, with my next book, even I'm just thinking, as I read, as I write and draft, testing out Chat GPT. I haven't thought of that one, but I'm going to try that.
Mm.
Is wow, it's good. I like how it organizes it, but I don't like the tone. I'm going to have to twist and tweak, and I'm going to have to shift this, and it's missing some other stuff. And I bet I could get it to a pretty good point of like, close, but I will always still want to go and edit and make sure I'm adding all the pieces and the things I want and changing it to address it. So I think to your point, it's a quicker way at getting at what you at the end of the day want,
Hmm.
without necessarily, and I don't think it's the right word, but cheating or like because I think
Yeah.
there's this feeling of that
Oh, for sure.
with AI, and it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like that to me. If we're if I at the end of the day with my book, I'm still editing, I'm tweaking it, and I'm honing it.
Oh, for sure. And you're using it as a tool for copy editing. You're going to reduce your editing costs because now the final product that you'd be getting out is, of course, been already scrubbed. And I have done that, uploading several pages at a time and saying, and this has been in the newly released epilogue that I'm including on my new version. That's being released within the next month or so. I added an epilogue, which is going to give a glimpse at what happens after the fact. And during that process, because I didn't want to go through the whole process of hiring an editor for just something so small, I put the pages into ChatGPT and I said, please act as a copy editor and copy edit this. Don't change style, don't change composition, don't change my voice. I don't even want you to change a word. I just want you to edit this. And we've been using tools like that forever. But when you put it in there, it feels a little bit different. But now it's able to give it to you a little bit more of an intelligent way with a little more confidence that it's been, yeah, kind of scrubbed in that way.
No, it's so awesome. And I think of, as I think about this, because it's something that I keep trying to figure out in my brain for, where does AI fit in so many different places, and especially with art and leading an arts organization, is where is it okay, where is it not okay? And I think it's great as a tool. Like if we continue to think of it and use it as a tool, I think it's a wonderful resource. And I almost feel like, I think of so many people who use ghostwriters.
Mm,
Like, is this kind of like a ghostwriter in some ways? Like, it's kind
for
you
sure.
right? Because you're still giving them the prompts, the information, and it's still your story. I know a lot of people do biographies with a ghostwriter. And so, at the end of the day, it's kind of that same concept. So maybe it's not that bad after all,
In that
right?
way, I agree with you for sure. I think the one thing that I would say like concerns me, or if I was in the nonfiction kind of arena, I would feel threatened by it because somebody that just has a general idea of wanting to put out something that could be informational, how-to guides, you go and see like all those types of books, those things are could replace writers in that way because AI could very easily say, well, here's the process and how you do something computing. So I can put together a non-fiction book for you quickly for somebody that would have this age level reading, et cetera, et cetera. Where I feel confident and protected is that to your point in the arts, in the literature world, it's still that human development that needs to happen. If you don't have that artist going through and picking which parts that are being generated by this AI to go into that final product, it's really that piece of it that still keeps this human and artful in my point of view.
Well, I think that gets into some of the ethical pieces that we could probably talk forever about, but is kind of like that copyright piece. Because
Mm.
I almost wonder at this point, like, does your tone and your way of speaking almost need to be copyrighted if we're able to just generate that and mimic it anywhere? And even our voices and inflections, because there are some people with some very unique voices
Mhm.
that as it's recorded, like I think about your audiobook, could Christopher Walken, do your audiobook because he has such a unique voice and, just steal from that. So there seems to be something there that, needs to be thought through so that, people's likeness aren't stolen. There's all kinds of other ethical elements to that. But I think that's a really good point too, especially with the nonprofit or the nonfiction piece,
Yeah.
because I practically wrote my own cookbook with ChatGPT the other day, and I was like, wow, I guess I probably don't ever need to buy a cookbook because I
Yeah.
can tailor it to Asian female woman, 46-year-old who, blah, 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 all these things. What is my weekly plan for eating? And it spit it out, and it was really good, and it had links and resources, and I can readjust it, every day if I want
If you
to.
need to. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, it's a little frightening in that sense, of all those, it's a too bad, for those people who are experts. And yet, there's something to people's names and trust, right? So,
Yeah,
but
we're definitely coming on a time that, from like a legality standpoint, there's likely going to be some like big cases in the future that are brought, between all the way up, I can imagine, to say something along the lines of rights to this, and it could change. And I think that's because we're just on the cusp. We're just entering this. And as good as AI is today, they're saying that within the, next several years, there's going to be such an exponential jump that our technology entirely could look differently. Recent CEO of Apple has said that the iPhone could be obsolete in 5 to 10 years, which seems crazy, but he equated it to an iTouch, the last thing I saw. So we'll see how that pans out. But to speak a little bit about the voice, I just wanted to make sure I got this point out because I was thinking about it. I had the option when I was doing the audiobook to one, I could have just read it myself, get the proper equipment and taken the time to do that. But then two, when I was started looking at like, oh wow, I could have AI get this, and you have your choice of, I think it was like 50 different types of voices, including your own. And I was really tempted for a moment because they basically have you clone your voice, but I didn't want to cross that threshold. And I thought about it for a minute and I was like, what if, you know, in 100 years from now when I pass away, because that's when I'm obviously going to pass away 100 years from now, in 100 years ago from now, uh, my voice is still existing. Like, and if you had programmed a chat GPT with my voice, like, are my children or grandchildren or loved ones even going to be able to grieve having a solution like that where they could literally talk to me? And I was like, I'm not doing it yet. I'm not going down that road because that to me is frightening.
it's crazy. There's some
Yeah.
weird things that, your book breaks up so many interesting questions for us, as people. But I think, artificial intelligence does even so much, just that's just one piece of that. And there's just so much more to it from the health perspective, education, the arts perspective. There's so many different ways.
Mm.
It opens new doors of opportunity, which I think are wonderful, as we've been talking about with the writing landscape. Wow, like just cut off like years, even in some cases, of time that it takes to develop your story and the pieces and getting the tone and developing all these things. And then at the same time, these ethical questions of, my concern often is the arts are always under attack. It's one, a lot of people who pursue that as their career are some of the least paid people in the United States. It's hard to make a living off of that. And so I have concerns about the future of artists and those who are naturally creative. I think we're all creative, but
Yeah.
who want to pursue that as something that's just a life call. It gets concerning to me when there are things that can take the place of that human element that I feel like is so amazing and that unique perspective that each person brings. And just being able to replicate and copy it through AI seems like there's just something weird about that and wrong. At the same time, it's a great tool.
Right.
So many questions with this.
Oh, for sure. And so I think that one of the good things that are going to come from this is that I feel like, especially whenever anyone finds out you're a writer, one of the first things a lot of people will say was, "Oh, I have such a good story idea for you," or "Oh, I have this amazing." Right? I get this all the time, and I think what AI will start to do is it's going to bring more writers to the table that wouldn't be traditional writers, somebody that wouldn't sit down in front of a keyboard hours a day for several years putting this out. Because now you're going to empower people that do have really creative ideas, but didn't have the means or even the patience to sit back and put it through. So what I envision is going to happen is that it will bring an influx of additional people that wouldn't have the means to. And for somebody who has a nonfiction approach, a biography approach that didn't want to hire a ghostwriter before and had some amazing, impactful things happen in their life that the world should know about or be inspired by, like what a great tool for somebody who is going through something and has an amazing story but doesn't have the means to do it. So I think it's going to ante up the creative juices, in my opinion, from a writer, because it's going to allow folks that have these amazing, incredible ideas that the world would never know about otherwise, because they wouldn't have had that dedication and time to get to the keyboard like that, like we all do as writers now, in the same way and take years to put it out. Now they're able to do it in a much lesser time with a tool that helps them get it on the page.
I think that's a really good point. And I know there's been such a influx in authors and people writing due to AI. And I don't know what the percentages are for generated AI generated or supported content, but I think, to your point, that is happening. And I think that's wonderful from a certain point of view. And then there's also the need to filter what's good and what's not good.
Mhm.
And I think that's going to be a challenge for
Oh my
readers.
gosh, for sure. Yeah, I don't envy that perspective. Finding the books that are really good for you. I mean, I know there's a lot of dystopian thriller readers out there that haven't discovered me yet. And that's just a cost of having a market that's completely flooded, with this. So marketing in the future will be even more important. Things like SEO and AEO, which is new now. It's the artificial it's the instead of search engine optimization, they're now saying artificial search optimization, which, if you don't know, is basically like when you go to search for something, Google gives you the AI blurb. It's how do I get into that blurb? So like things like that are going to be even more important going forward for authors and publishers to try and sell their books so that they can get in front of more people.
It's so crazy. I think about all those pieces. So don't be discouraged, authors, writers. There are some great new tools.
Yes.
It's daunting, but it is getting there less barriers, perhaps. Maybe a few
Yes.
less barriers, just a few more new things we might have to learn. So before we sign off, I'd love to hear some maybe tips you have as a marketing person, as someone who's written your own book, has used some AI in the process. What would you say or want to leave potential authors, writers with from what you've learned in your experience?
So I think what I would do as a step one is, a lot of people hear AI and they get so intimidated and scared by it. And it's really the easiest thing in the world. It's easier than Google. And a lot of people, when Google first came out, and you obviously remember that whole kind of boom, things were a little bit different. You had to get used to it and how to search and things of that. AI is the same thing, but it's just like turbo powered. So I would encourage you to get a free version of ChatGPT. And when you first get into that prompt, as if you were searching for something for Google, tell it exactly what you want it to do. I want you to act as my writing assistant for my creative piece of work entitled X. Upload a few pages if you'd like to get it to understand your style and you as a person and you as a writer, and then allow it to guide you. And you don't have to live in it, but instead of going to Google saying, I need some examples of 15th century, like I just like using that example of names appropriate to that time, pop it in Chat GPT and let that same inspiration that you would get through regular searching now from Chat GPT, and allow that to kind of guide your path towards you getting your project done, hopefully sooner and a little bit more efficient and in depth than you would have done it on your own. Let it assist you.
So awesome. I thank you so much for your time. I think we could talk forever, but good news for those who are local. We will be on a panel soon, June. Goodness gracious, my calendar coming up the third Monday of June. Bill, myself, Masherie, and Cecil Warren will be at Whipple Hall in New London, June 16th from 6:30 to 7:30, discussing the changing landscape of the literary world because of artificial intelligence. So we will be having a similar discussion with a few different perspectives on what it means, what we should think about, some different things that people are experiencing and how they see. So if you're interested, come out and check it out. There will be some of Bill's book there if you're interested as well, and a couple
Yes.
others. So really great opportunity. Bill, thank you so much for being here. This is just really wonderful to speak with you. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I mean I think we certainly nailed it in the amount of time that we did. I think you're right. We could talk all day about it. It's such a hot topic. But thank you so much for having me on. It's great to talk about AI and my book all at the same time. And like I said, it's a very timely novel. So it's fun. It's fun to bring, during this time and see what people react and how they use it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Of course.
Thanks for tuning in to The Creative Buzz, brought to you by the Center for the Arts in the Lake Sunapee region. Be sure to follow us for more inspiring conversations with artists and creative minds, and stay connected by visiting our website and social media. Until next time, keep gathering, keep connecting, and most of all, keep creating.